So a very good morning from me as well. It's my first time, so those that I didn't have a chance to meet, so it's my first time to this beautiful city of KIEF and first time in Ukraine, so it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Olga, for the question as well. At the economic level, if we think about this topic of innovation and bring it up from a corporation to a country and then the economy, we're going through a massive phase of transformation and evolution. And if I just refer to this as the first part of the revolution, the rate at which technology seems to be accelerating compared to human adaptability. Meaning, for example, I was in a talk just a few minutes ago around artificial intelligence mapped across to human intelligence. How do we even adapt to that environment as humans? So going back to the economy, I feel that we're on this curve where technology is impacting not only, let's say, IT companies, but every company, every country, and every nation. So it's becoming more of a global revolution and evolution. Coupled with that, we think about innovation from a strategic point of view of how does a country look at the economy from where they are right now to where they wish to be. So what might be that country level strategy? And what I refer to here is what I call a S-curve. So if we stand still, the moment we stand still, we're left behind. Meaning, as Ukraine, personally, from an outsider-in point of view, my reference to Ukraine is fantastic at software development, brilliant young talent, highly academic around science and technology and mathematics. So applying that in an innovation area from an economic point of view, we need to make sure that it's an iterative process from one generation to the next generation and beyond. That should all lead towards a growth strategy. I'll give an example. If I mention Estonia, mostly people think Estonia as a digital country. Why? Because they've created that brand. If I think about Ukraine, as I said, from a software development point of view, but I think there are far more advantages that we can play from a Ukraine point of view. The UK, where I'm based, we've just defined a 5 to 10 year digital strategy at the corporation level. In Japan, they have something called Society 5.0. Where should society as the Japanese people be in the next 5 to 10 years? And they have defined that as a complete strategy. So from an economic point of view, I would say different levels of transformation. One is continuous improvement. For me personally, that's not really innovation or transformation. It's kind of incremental, digitizing processes. Okay. But when we start getting really transforming the whole business model, what is the business model of Ukraine? I'm not sure. Is there one? I'm not sure. And I attended some of the talks yesterday. There is a vague aspiration, but there's a lot more room for improvement. The true part is really disruption. So disrupting ourselves as a nation to then grow together as a nation. So that's what I would summarize. But there's a view of digital transformation for what it is. There's internal and then external. So from a corporation point of view, we need to transform internally, but also build partnerships at the country level with startups, entrepreneurs, and intrapreneurship, which I'll touch on later on as well. And the last point here, I would say, this whole thing about transformation. Yes, we have some targets and we know what kind of vision there is, but there are certain things that transformation is not. And what I've experienced is, for example, here, we have one initiative in an organization and it has a start date and an end date. That's not really transformation for me. Second thing is that everything needs to be online. That's also not, for me, a digital transformation as such. And then the third thing is, at the bottom, when you think about the finishing line and everything has to be just digitized. So when we think about at the economic level, have the balance of how we can use the empowerment of the people of Ukraine, so 40 million population, and imagine that force as an economy that can take the country forward as well.
Okay, thank you very much. My second question will be about Konica Minolta, because our company is really a good example of transformation. I mean, we are changing our business model. We are transforming our, let's say, product-centric company to service-centric company. And besides, we are transforming inside. I mean, we have many initiatives inside based on people enthusiasm and also people initiatives which help us to develop innovative products. And could you please tell us a little bit more about Konica Minolta experience? Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So my history, briefly, when I joined Konica Minolta, is around about 4.5 years ago. And I grew up in a very American-centric organization. I spent 16 years with a company called Ideation, and then that was acquired by HP. It's a very American way of thinking. And then I joined a Japanese company, which is completely the other side of the spectrum around culture. So Konica Minolta for me was two things. Firstly, for me, it was a camera company. I was quite wrong. And the second thing is, if I ask many people, it was or is a print company. But bring myself back, and I joined, and I thought, okay, why would I join this Japanese company that's, it's a camera company and print company, but it does a lot more. The challenges were, how do we start transforming the organization from a strategic corporation point of view, such that people don't just say, yep, they're the hardware product suppliers. So we have a mission and a vision to go from product to services, solutions, and as an IT service provider. So we do, for example, 10% of our revenue is generated from healthcare products around mammography, radiography, instruments. We have industrial instruments such as light measuring devices or color measurement devices. If anyone here has a sweet tooth and they have this Nutella, let's say, for example, and it's a nice chocolate spread, and there's a hazelnut in there, that hazelnut is almost always the same size, the same shape, the same color. How and why? Because there is some kind of a measurement device that's measuring what kind of size, shape, etc. it is, and color on the back of that. So we are one of the leading companies around color as well. I'm becoming more fascinated around color. I don't know enough about color just yet. But then innovation, from a Konica Minolta point of view, we are a family of around 43,000 people globally, and innovation is not a new thing. From the historical point of view, we have continued to innovate throughout the years, and especially when I think about our history of developing those products that are quite pioneering in its journey. Because of the impact of these massive trends around, for example, artificial intelligence and blockchain and augmented reality and virtual reality and so on, emerging trends that we need to consider. And I have a quotation from our CEO in a short while to show you, which I'll save for now. So we established business innovation centers, 5 in 5 different regions back in 2014, with the view of saying, I won't go through every single one here, but how can we start developing a future portfolio of our business outside of the core? So if I said, would you associate Konica Minolta with augmented reality? Anyone? Probably not. All right, so then the lady's smiling. And likewise, so we said, okay, how do we even change that brand and imaging that we are quite innovative and we're moving forward? So looking at, for example, the internal corporate culture, complementing this journey around being physical and connecting it to being digital. I'm a very human, face-to-face, person-to-person type of person, right? So what I really prefer is having conversations that are at the ground level, and yes, there might be technology-centric. What might be the business value that we're trying to generate? And so these 5 business innovation centers in 5 different locations globally have that mission to expand and develop a new portfolio above and beyond our core business. The second part of it is, how do we work closer with our clients? We have over 2 million customers globally who see us as a print supplier. And that's a really good footprint for us to start this conversation where we start speaking about innovation, for example. The last point I'd make on this for now is, when we think about this nebulous topic of innovation, and we're developing products and incubating ideas, it's really important to start on ourselves. So as a nation, for example, if we're creating these fantastic ideas, try them on ourselves first. So we have, I call it my hierarchy of need, not Maslow's, but the innovation hierarchy of need. First hierarchy for us is, everything we develop, we need to put into practice internally. We learn a lot, then we can incubate towards commercialization, then we work with the customer, so around co-innovation, for example. And ultimately, the reality is no one really cares how innovative you are. That's the final thing. But what they do really care about is how our innovation can empower the customer's customer. That's the eventual goal for us. It's a journey that's underway.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay. And I had a statement from Harvard Business Review that the only thing which actually stopped all or most of companies of creating some innovative products or services, it's a lack of imagination. Imagination or creativity, they are some ingredients of innovativeness, let's say. But they are not only ones. I mean, I think that we still have a big impact of leadership for innovations. Because if leadership does not support it, actually people are helpless. And probably you could share some takeaways for leadership regarding what to do and how to support innovativeness spirit, let's say, inside companies.
Yeah, that's it's an interesting topic about creativity and innovation. Leadership support, we know, is essential. And the reason I joined our company was really the movement of innovation began right from the top, from our CEO. And so essentially we were established as a sponsor of us by our CEO. But then we think about how is the shift going? And we did a lot of studying around analyst reports, how the trends are, emerging markets, emerging technologies. Then we realized, of course, that the whole industry is shifting across, so to say, Germany referred to it as Industry 4.0. For us, it was around a platform business, right? So where and how can we develop digital platforms that enable our future growth? So very high introductions here, high-level introductions around workplace. If you imagine this environment, how does it make you feel that there's no natural light coming in? How does that impact you in your work environment if you're sat in a dark room? And how productive do you feel versus when there is a beautiful day outside, there's natural light coming in? Do you feel much more productive and happy? Probably. How do you define the workplace of the future when the future is here already? What is the difference between a workplace and a workspace? And is there a difference? So we did a lot of academic research. I'm on the road every single week, and this week has been three locations in the last 3.5 days. So I work a lot from my phone, and so that is my workspace. I hardly go to the office, and when I do, I don't work so much because I'm catching up with colleagues. So we're thinking, how do we then scale this from a workplace of the future in terms of light, sound? A lot of my colleagues during winter in the office are super cold, so they want the heating to be really, really high. Then I have other colleagues who are always too hot, but the temperature control is the same. So how do we create that workplace environment which becomes more towards a personalized model? So we go from a business to personalization as a business model. So workplace of the future, augmented vision is a really interesting topic. I've seen some examples here, around augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality. Then we have wearable devices. So Konica Minolta, because of our history in optics, we have a really beautiful smart lens, and I'll show you what it looks like in the picture for industrial environments. So it's related to our manufacturing history, but at the same time around optics and imaging, but really growing that S-curve that I was referring to earlier on. So here's a live demonstration. So a piece of paper from this year's show, but using our platform to augment. This took around 10 minutes to develop only. Okay, I don't want to shout, but I'll try and speak a bit louder. So if you just look at this video, so it's a very simple piece of paper. You can add a video on top, you can add the news, etc. So we've created an augmented reality platform that is very simply, what you see is what you get. So you have some images, you drag and you drop, and then you add experiences on top. So this takes you to a website upon a click, and we are launching this in the next 2 weeks. So the commercialization aspect is now coming out, where we can offer the platform to our customers as well. I think that is a bit noisy. Can you? Thanks. Sorry. So augmented reality as a platform. The second example that I have is our smart glasses. And people say, all right, smart glasses for generally the public use. Actually, for us, the use case is very manufacturing-centric. So what you see here is, as a lens, it's called a holographic optical element. It sounds very Robocop-fied. When you try them, the first ones that I tried, I didn't like personally, the old prototype, because the battery was huge and there was a camera here. I wear glasses anyway, so it was a bit clunky. But these ones are 35 grams in weight. There's 80% transparency in the lens, and it gives you a step-by-step guidance. So if I'm in a factory environment working on something, I'm given instructions right in front of me to perform an action of a series of actions. The battery is hot swappable, so it lasts 7 hours as an average, and you can very easily swap it. So from an incubation and innovation point of view, where we are transforming is this is being launched in the next 2 weeks as well to market. And we have a really interesting pilot with Siemens, which I can refer to, and we have a very practical example of how they're using these glasses to build turbines in their shop floor. So this is something else that you might not associate with us, but if you think again from an imaging and optics camera company, print company. So we have a lot of expertise in Japan, especially to bring this type of thing to market. And the final thing is, how do we create this culture of innovation? So very, very simple. This is not a revolution as such, but we created our own, what we call an ideation platform. How do we, as a community, start thinking about new ideas based on specific topics? So it's very simple. You can log onto a platform, so you can be the owner of a challenge. We can then contribute towards the challenge, and other people can then rate, review, add comments onto the platform. The best thing that we find, it's very simple, and simplicity is really the key. Meaning, what are the most popular ideas? How do we tap into our people's knowledge that we don't even know about? So for example, if I mention you, Olga, right? So I did not know until we met, we spent some time using these type of facilities and platforms to know that there's far more in terms of knowledge that we can share and exchange with each other. So this has again been launched about 2 months back, and it's available, etc. So it's on the market as well. And the last thing, you might have seen our Konica Minolta stand here as an example. It's what we call Mobotix. Mobotix is a company that we invested in about 3 years ago now. It's a German company that builds security solutions. What I like, if you just see here, the way we're transforming is also going into healthcare and precision medicine, but specifically for healthcare and being quite Japanese-centric around Society 5.0. And as we become older and we are living longer, of course, not as many people want to stay in a nursing home, for example, or in hospitals. So the elderly have the facility to be in their home environment where they're comfortable, but we can use these type of cameras to detect maybe a fall, and that then sends a signal back to wherever it might be. The second thing around oil and gas industry, it's very difficult to detect leakages. So the thermal imaging provides the opportunity for us to then detect that type of a potential leak. And the last one is being able to very easily drive in nighttime with what we call a 3D LiDAR solution. So someone I was speaking with earlier this morning said entrepreneurship. Is anyone here familiar with entrepreneurship versus entrepreneurship? One, okay. No? Okay, so
no, two.
Two, thank you. So entrepreneurship is the opposite of entrepreneurship. So when we are establishing partnerships, we typically go to startups and say, she's an entrepreneur, we have a gap, let's work together on something. Entrepreneurship, in one sentence, is identifying a momentum of those innovators that are already within the company, or those people that are within the company that have the innovator's mindset. So we create that startup culture from within, not from my team. This is the key lesson as well that we've learned. This lady in the black top in the middle is my colleague. She's the head of the European Human Resource Department of Konica Minolta, and she is the lead completely of this whole entrepreneurship program. Olga is our ex-alumni, as it happens, from last year's program. In essence, what the program achieves is this. So we have colleagues in Ukraine, we have colleagues in Germany, in France, in Spain, and across Europe. Traditionally, they've been working in silos because it's been a sales company, so they've not really needed to speak to each other. But as we start becoming more global, we need to make sure that colleagues without boundaries, no one really, it doesn't really matter about boundaries, respect the culture instead. So we had, at that time, I think around 19 different nationalities represented and 50 people in total. And that's my alarm again, second alarm, right?
Wake up.
And it's a program over 6 months where our candidates spend 10% of their time to solve real business challenges. And it's fantastic because they build a prototype, they learn about methodologies of innovation, it might be the business model Canvas or Sprint and Scrum, etc. So we do the training and techniques at the same time. So the quote I referred to earlier on, and I really like this because when we think about a traditional Japanese business, it's been quite insular. So the Japan team would create something in R&D, and then the rest of the Konica Minolta world will go and sell it. The model has completely changed. We're in Europe are empowered, as are our colleagues in the US, in Singapore for Asia Pacific. And Mr. Yamana, our CEO and president, had an interview and he said, we cannot live in the past, because yes, we have a very successful business, but that's not enough. And people say the cash cow, that's not what we need to refer to. If we don't disrupt ourselves, we will be disrupted. And I love that because he's got that vision, and this is from, 2 years ago. So that's part one. The second thing is that it wasn't just words on a piece of paper. I am the existence here as a result of his commitment. And so we have these 5 business innovation centers, not R&D. So it's a bridge. So think about from another lesson learned, look at the business value you want to create through innovation. And don't drive innovation through technology. Yeah, so really understand the customer or your partner. It's a busy slide, so apologies. I just wanted to show you where the strategy comes in. So the third lesson is from a strategic vision. Define the vision and communicate the vision through every single department that you can. So sometimes people say, yes, I know it exists, but I don't know anything about it. I meet people and they say, I know of the Business Innovation Center, but I've never met anyone. You're the first person that I've met. So we need to make sure that we communicate and have face-to-face engagements, that we're actually physically on location and meeting and sharing what we're developing. A quiz of the day, okay? Let me just stand back so people can see. Does anyone know this image by any chance? Probably not. The gentleman on the right-hand side, and probably not as well. So we think about invention versus innovation. Okay, so invention. Next slide, please.
We need technical support, please. Okay. Yeah, we have
Perfect.
it.
Thank you. So, this, believe it or not, was the first photo ever taken with a selfie stick. Okay. And it was by one of our colleagues, Uwada-san, in 1983. And it's fascinating because he invented this, and there's always a why. So another lesson, start with the why. So being Japanese, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Japanese culture, it's very respectful, very kind, and very humble. So he visited Europe with his family, and he felt embarrassed asking lots of people to stop and take photos. And so he said, okay, I can do it myself. And so he created this selfie stick with a very old school camera with a Minolta logo. And that was what he invented. But it was not innovated thereafter because 1983 was pretty early. And so the patent expired. So the next person that came along and patented that idea has done really well. So invention against innovation. So just remember that as well.
Milan, I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but we have 3 minutes.
I'll speak really fast. So next slide, please. So last 3 slides. The fourth lesson is thought leadership. Publish what you want to achieve and have these type of thought leadership papers so people are being educated as well as us learning as well. And these are all available online, for example, for people to download. So in summary, I have 2 slides. How do we bring everything together? This is quite a bit of an academic slide, but I like it a lot. I call it an ambidextrous organization. Ukraine, I was thinking, this approach can be applied at a Ukraine level, meaning Ambidextrous means those people that can write with their left hand and those people that can write with their right hand. As an organization or as a country, we can explore new ideas on one side and we can exploit the amazing solutions and talent that we already have within Ukraine. So ambidextrous organization is something we should focus on. And in closing, I would say this all centers around change. Okay, so we can speak about innovation and keywords, but change is really essential. We need people that are embracing change. If you have something in your heart and mind, and you really believe in it, be the first person to change, because it starts with you. Build that influential network and have ambassadors. So Olga is actually one of my first ambassadors and said, yeah, I like this thing called innovation. I'm on board. And through Olga, we've built another network which I have no idea about. So essentially it becomes their change, and then we as a one start moving in that direction. So change is key, and fear is really why people are resistant to change. I won't put my photo up because we have lovely Olga here. So if you need any further information and so on, please reach out to Olga. I'm around as well for the day, so any questions I'll be happy to take. So thank you.
Milan, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we don't have any time for questions, but we are available here, and during coffee break, you are highly welcome to meet. Yeah, thank you very much for your attention. Goodbye.